lived in a two-story wooden house at the edge of a thick forest. The kind of place where you could go days without seeing another soul. The house had stood for nearly 100 years, weathered wood, chipped paint, or roof that creaked with the wind. And a basement that, for some reason, they never mentioned. It didn't take me long to notice something was off. The house was quiet to quiet. My grandma kept the curtains drawn during the day, and my grandpa always locked the basement door, even though there wasn't anything valuable down there. I spent most of my time reading old detective novels on the porch or riding my bike into town. At night, the woods came alive with cicadas, owls, and the occasional eerie howl. I'd always liked horror stories, but being out here, surrounded by so much silence, made me understand just how close fear and imagination really were. Then came the night of the storm. She handed me a rusted old key from a ceramic bowl in the kitchen. "Get in, get what you need, and come right back up," she said firmly. "Don't stay down there," I asked her why. I swept my flashlight around once and spotted a plastic tub labeled batteries, flashlights, bulbs, jackpot. As I grabbed the tub, I noticed something strange, and the more I looked at it, the more unnatural it felt. I walked over and knocked. Hollow curiosity took over. I started feeling along the edges and found a seam almost like a door. Disguised in the wall, there was no knob, but there was a small notch in the wood, just big enough for fingers. I slipped mine in and pulled gently. The panel creaked open with resistance. Suddenly, the door behind me, the false wall, slammed shut with a deep, wooden thud. I rushed over, fumbling for the edge, but there was no handle on this side, no latch, just smooth plywood. My heart pounded as I pushed and pulled with growing panic. Trapped, I banged on the door. "Hello, Grandma, Grandpa," nothing. Then I heard it again, that breath, louder this time, closer. So loud I could almost hear the blood rushing through my ears. Then ... silence. Not the silence of a quiet night, not the kind you can escape with focus, but the kind that presses against your skull. Not the chair, something in the chair, something coiled beneath the wood, something ancient and cold. It wanted me still, wanted me to surrender. And just as panic reached its peak, a bright flash burned through the dark, light, real light. The door burst open from behind, and strong arms pulled me backward. I gasped, blinked, and suddenly I was back in the basement. Trio basement collapsed on the dusty wooden floor. My grandfather loomed over me, breathing hard, flashlight clutched in his fist. His hand shook. "You opened it," he said, voice cracked and hoarse. I could barely speak. What is it?" He didn't answer. He just reached past me and slammed the false wall shut. Then he locked it. She just made tea with shaking hands and placed a mug in front of me like a ritual she couldn't skip. Her eyes were wide, glassy, as if she had already seen the end of this story before. I thought it was just a weird storage room. He shook his head. "It's not a room, it's a mouth. A memory, a prison." I said nothing. He leaned back, his gaze far away. My grandfather swallowed hard. "Because when I was your age, I opened it too." A long silence stretched between us. He pulled up the sleeve of his shirt and showed me a thin. "I've heard them, but I learned to live with it. Keep the door sealed, feed it nothing, and never let it see your reflection again." My throat tightened. It saw me. He looked down. I turned on the lamp and found nothing there, of course. But the window was open, even though I'd locked it before falling asleep. I chalked it up to the wind. The second night. It spoke clearly, with my voice. "You're not dreaming." I woke up screaming. My throat was raw. My sheets were torn, as if I'd been thrashing violently. My grandmother ran into the room, clutching her rosary, and for a moment she looked at me like she didn't recognize me. "I saw it," I whispered. Again, she said nothing, just placed her hand on my forehead and muttered something in a language I didn't understand. A prayer, maybe. Her fingers were cold and trembling. By the third night, I stopped sleeping altogether. Both of them, maybe more than once, I confronted Grandpa in the woodshed that afternoon. He was sharpening an old hunting knife, the metal scraping slowly against the stone with rhythmic precision. "What happens if you don't stop it?" I asked him. He didn't look up. "It finds someone else, and if it doesn't, then it takes everything." That was all he would say that evening. I stayed in my room. I covered the mirrors. I locked the door. I tried to convince myself that this wasn't real, that stress, insomnia, the trauma of my parents' divorce. No retreating steps. Just silence. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Then, from under the door, I saw a shadow fall across the gap. A long, stretched shape as if someone were crouching right there. Waiting. That night, I didn't sleep. By morning, the shadow was gone. I opened the door to find a single object lying on the floor, an old photograph, one I had never seen before. "If you see it, it sees you." I showed it to Grandpa. He turned pale. Then he took a lighter from his pocket, lit the edge of the photo, and let it burn until the ashes curled into nothing. "You have no idea what this thing is. It's not just a ghost. It's not just a haunting. It's older than this house, older than this land. It chooses people. And it's chosen you." I couldn't speak. Like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. "I don't even know what it wants," I whispered. He looked at me, eyes tired and full of regret. "It wants to be seen. That's how it survives." And every window of the house, every piece of glass was filled with my reflection. Hundreds of me. Only, not me. Each one was smiling. The first thing I noticed when I woke up was the silence. Maybe I never found the key, never opened that cursed door. But the aching bruise on my shoulder and the faint scent of damp concrete lingering on my pajamas told me otherwise. Downstairs, it started like static, faint and scratchy, like an old radio stuck between stations. I sat up in bed, heart hammering, straining to hear. "He's still here." The voice was low and raspy. Male but twisted somehow, like it had been run through broken speakers. I stood, barefoot, and walked slowly toward the hallway. The whispering was louder there, echoing faintly down the stairs. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the sound was coming from inside the walls. I pressed my ear against the cold plaster. The voice continued whispers, fragmented phrases, as if something had thrown itself against the other side. I waited, frozen, no footsteps, no voices. Just silence again. I wanted to leave, pack my bags, drive anywhere, sleep in the car if I had to. But the rest of me, the part that had seen that thing in the basement, knew better. I started in the living room, tracing the wall where I'd heard the loudest sound. The stud finder blinked oddly. Like it was confused, I marked the section and pried off a piece of drywall. Behind it, there was no insulation, no wires. Just an empty, hollow space about a foot wide, running vertically down like a hidden shaft. And inside that space, something moved. I yelped and fell backward, dropping the flashlight. For a second, I saw a pale hand retreat into the darkness. It was just ambient noise, wind, house settling, nothing unusual. Then, around 3:17 a.m., the whispers started again. But this time, they were clearer, much clearer. Beneath the house. "Bones remember, walls breathe." Then a pause. And a different voice, one I hadn't heard before. A woman's voice, gentle, almost kind. "He can't stop now." He opened the door. The following day, I descended into the basement again. This time, I brought salt, candles, my phone, and the crowbar. The door was still locked tight, but I could hear faint breathing behind it. The flashlight barely pierced it. The stairs groaned beneath my weight as I descended again into that second basement, the one that shouldn't have existed, only now it was different. Drawn in something dark and dried, the whispers grew louder as I walked. There were more of them now, dozens of voices, overlapping, whispering fragments of thought and pain and fear. There was another door, this one made of rusted metal, bolted shut from the outside. I leaned in, and behind the door, sobbing. A woman's sobs, soft, broken. Not the nickname, not a guess, Ethan. No one had called me that since. I know you're there. She whispered again, "It's me, Mom." My knees buckled, and I collapsed to the ground. The flashlight flickered and died the moment I stepped in. I reached blindly, calling her name, "Mom," silence, then a snap. A hand grabbed my wrist, cold, strong, and wrong. "Not your mother, Ethan." Shapes moved in the corners, not quite people, not quite shadows. They watched, they whispered, and then the floor opened beneath me. The moment I stepped past the basement door, I felt as though I had been swallowed whole by something ancient. The walls no longer looked like concrete, no, they breathed. I swear to God they pulsed. Weak against the choking dark, I aimed it forward and froze. The hallway was not supposed to be there. It extended far beyond the basement's original blueprint, narrowing as it went. The walls warped and irregular, like they'd been carved by clawed hands. The floor creaked beneath me, but there was no wood, just dirt, wet and sticky like it wanted to pull me under. And then came the whispers, not loud, not aggressive, but constant. Like 100 people murmuring from behind a thick wall, or the sound of wind passing through teeth. I couldn't understand them. My name was spoken, not shouted, whispered. Again and again, "Jacob." I turned. No one. I kept walking. The hallway opened into a chamber, vast, impossible. It should not exist under my house or anywhere in this world. The ceiling stretched higher than I could see, lost in a thick mist that floated just above my head. And beside it a mirror, old, cracked, and somehow glowing with a silvery sheen. I stepped closer and saw myself, but not as I was. My reflection smiled when I didn't. It moved before I did. Its eyes were sunken and dark, its teeth far too many for a human mouth. And it whispered, "Set me free." I stumbled back. The whispers grew louder, converging into something chant-like. My head pounded, my nose bled. I covered my ears, but they were inside me now, not just around me. Something was crawling down the walls, 100 hands. Pale, skeletal, fingers twitching, reaching. I ran. I don't remember how long I ran. The walls bent, the floor shook, the ceiling groaned like it would collapse. But I made it to the hallway again. The door I came from was gone. But what kept me moving was the sound behind me, the wet, dragging shuffle. Something was following, always just out of sight. I found another room, circular, with walls made of bones, human bones, all bleached white and arranged in spiraling patterns. In the center was a child's crib. Inside it, something moved. A lump of flesh, breathing, quivering. It opened and it was mine. I screamed and stumbled backward. That's when I saw her again. Emily, but not as she was. Her eyes were all black. Her mouth hung open, jaw unhinged like a snake. She floated above the ground, her hair writhing like underwater weeds. "You left me," she hissed. "You're not real." I whispered. She screamed, and my ears bled. Then she vanished. I fell to my knees, and then I saw the door. Another basement door, but this one was covered in chains. I approached the chained door. The whispers had stopped. Everything was silent now, too silent. There were symbols etched into the chains. Glowing faintly, my name appeared in every one. "Jacob, Jacob, Jacob." A voice, deep and ancient, filled the air. "You opened the door. You must finish what was begun." I didn't want to. God knows I didn't, but something pulled me closer, like gravity had reversed, and I was falling upward toward that chained door. The chains unraveled themselves. The door opened on its own, inside. Stairs, endless, descending, spiraling. I stepped in, And as I did, I heard every scream I had ever screamed echoing down and down. I am still falling. I am still here. If you're watching this, listening to this, don't open your basement door. Outro, the price of curiosity. Some doors should remain closed. Some secrets untouched, and some whispers unheard. We think we are the masters of our homes. That the floor beneath us is solid, that the walls protect us. But beneath every house, there's something older, something waiting. My name is Jacob, or at least it was. If you find this tape, if you hear this voice, burn your basement door, don't look back. And whatever you do, never go below.